Hey everyone, it is great to talk to you again today. I know many of you are not panicking over a loss in overtime at Northwestern, where the team shot just 27% from three. If I'm reminded correctly, roughly 10 to maybe 12 times last year, they did the exact same thing, right? In those games, they were 6-6 though. They shot above 30 to 33%, and they were undefeated pretty much. So every team loses when they shoot poorly, and they did Friday night. Reality says they were not going to win every game anyway, and this would have been what I consider about 9 tough games that were still left on the schedule, and I would consider them very much a tough row to hoe. Before Friday, they were 7-0 coming into the game after a spectacular Maui Classic, and the first tough matchup of the Big Ten season went to Northwestern. Logically, you would expect Purdue to be, say, 5-4 in those really tough games I was thinking about. So now with 8 to play, 4-4 is probably the outlook. Meanwhile, look for one unexpected loss, and that gets them to 6 losses all season. So someone that they should have beat that they won't. And I mean easily. Nothing wrong with 25-6, but it's a long season and anything can and probably will happen. Now that the reality of the loss of Friday is fading from memory, let's look at what happened Monday night against Iowa. Now, here is what I wrote down as it actually happened. So I'm just going to kind of go through the game. It started like a track meet, but there was not great shooting from either team immediately. Yet the offensive rebounds early gave Purdue a couple of chances, and then they made threes right after those rebounds, all within the first, say, 10 minutes of the game. And that kind of set the tone of exactly what was going to happen throughout most of the game. Purdue gets up early, though, 20-10 by around the 10-minute mark or so, and Purdue is still a bit loose with the ball. Several turnovers stopped the game from becoming even worse at that point, though. Ziti is strong early, and Iowa has no answer for down low for him. And after a Ziti jam, the Boilermakers get caught napping and give up an easy 2 at the opposite end of the court to make it 22-14. There was a technical by the Iowa coach, and Purdue made the free throws, which was kind of odd at the time frame. But Purdue can now wrangle a ball, and it's deflected out of bounds at times, too. So there was all kinds of action going on. But after an Iowa miss, the Pirate Jonesy drains a triple to make it 27-14, and Purdue's going good. Iowa seems stunned by the Purdue D as they are making more turnovers than they usually do. And the outcome is TKR making a deuce after all this defense, and Fletch draining a 3 to make it 32-14 and a 10-0 run. The Hawkeyes take a much-needed timeout to stop that run, though. Now, Purdue has Iowa discombobulated at this point throughout most of the game, and the Boilermakers are 5 of 11 on 3, so they start off hot, while Iowa is only 1 for 5 in the first 13 minutes of the game. Purdue shooting 58% from the field overall to Iowa's 38%, and Purdue is plus 5 in the rebound category with 5 offensive gems. Purdue continued to push the score, though, up at one point by 20, and it was 40-20. It wasn't pretty play, but it was solid play. Going into the half, it was 45-24, with Purdue shooting 48.5% and Iowa shooting just 31. Purdue has 10 offensive rebounds and lead 24-14 in that overall category. Purdue was also 6 for 17 from 35% on the 3-ball, while the Hawkeyes ended up just 1 for 9. Good news, only 5 turnovers for the Boilermakers in that half. Ziti has 13, 9, and 3 assists already, and the General Smitty has 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 points. The Mason Jar has 10 points on 3 of 4 shooting, and Ethan Morton quietly had 3 assists and 3 rebounds. You know, Morton and First are the only Boilermakers to not really score so far that played. No one on Iowa was in double figures and had more than 4 rebounds or 2 assists, so they were down on the low end, of course. And both teams combined for only 12 fouls, with Iowa having 8 of them. Purdue looked like they had put Iowa in a vice in the first half, overpowering them in nearly every aspect of the game. Man, all sounds great, doesn't it? But my first thought was 21-point lead. Do they have the killer instinct? All but the last game, they generally came out hot in the second half, and they pressured other teams, even though in like the Marquette game, they gave up points along with, so they were kind of trading baskets for a while. But slow endings to each of a lot of the few games, maybe it's because they're up, has a lot to do with things and people thinking this team does not have a killer put them away kind of mindset. So I was excited to see what was going to happen in the second half, and could they do that? Could they send them, home basically packing before the game even got going in the second half? And from the opening moments, the Pirate let it be known quickly that Purdue was here to play, as he scored 7 points in 90 seconds, and Purdue went up 52-26. He tacks on another deuce shortly thereafter, and he is sending them to the Davy Jones locker. That's what I loved. Both teams trade buckets for a bit, and Iowa's pushing too much in their game, and it's obvious as they have 2 quick turnovers, and they foul 3 times, and now Purdue's up 58-31. So the fast start is coming. The Boilermakers are led by the Pirate Jones show tonight. That's what I called it, as he is doing everything at the first time out, scoring 11 second half points quickly. He also forced a turnover, and he's making Iowa work hard for everything. The rest of the Boilermakers were on board, and they were up 62-32 at that point. After the timeout, everyone seemed to get involved, as Purdue goes up 69-34 at one point, and a shell-shocked Iowa team is now looking for anyone off the bench to help stem the onslaught. With 12:57 to play, Purdue was up 72-37 and had a comfy 35-point lead. Here, coach starts putting in other guys, starting to get some time out there. But after a couple of threes by Iowa at the next timeout, with 11:17 left in the game, Purdue was up 74-44. It's a 30-point lead. You don't think much of it. Unfortunately, Mason Gillis, who had 12 points at that time, collided with Ziti and appeared to twist an ankle. After the game, he said he was going to be fine, though. From this point, both teams seemed to slow the pace down dramatically. I mean, with Iowa dropping the full court press, so now Purdue's walking the ball up, and they're running time off of the clock each possession, so things slowed down. Now, while many of us know it was a 35-point game, and Purdue played poorly, though, down the stretch, so to speak, that last 10 minutes, allowing Iowa to score and rebound at will, and close the game up to 83-61 at one point with just 5 minutes to go. So that lax defense, coupled with some missed shots, allowed Iowa to make it closer than it really should have been. The slowdown, though, for both teams kept Purdue from scoring 100, but also allowed Iowa to crack 60, as the final ended up 87-68. A disturbing end to the game for those of you who want perfection, right? But the guys were getting some work in, so we'll see how it goes. And a lot of that perfection we wanted was because Iowa made it look closer with the Purdue subs in, getting plenty of playing time late, and it just didn't go as well as we all wanted. Purdue only scored 2 points in the last 4.5 minutes of the game and 4 points in the last 7 minutes of the game, while Iowa scored 17. And you go back to Purdue only scored 13 in the last 12 minutes and 17 seconds of the game. That was a 29-13 run, adding to the closer ending to a really well-played game up to that point. So those are the stats. Stats were what you might think for what happened during the game. But 5 Purdue players scored in double figures while shooting 52% and going 34 from 65, and 32% from 3 while going 8 of 25. Turnovers, which ruled the last game, totaled only 8 in this game, so a nice rebound on that count. And rebounds were 39-31. Purdue side, as Iowa seemed to get the last 10, though, it seemed like. Iowa had more free throws than Purdue at 17-16, which you don't see that often, let alone in Mackey Arena. Player stats start with the reigning National Player of the Year, Zach Edey. I affectionately call him Ziti, and he only played 24 minutes, while scoring 25 points and adding 12 rebounds, with 9 of those being on the offensive genre. He also had 3 assists and 3 blocks. Jonesy had 17 points in 18 minutes of game time. Mason Gillis had 12 points in 13 minutes of game time. Fletch scored 12. TKR had 10 points and 6 rebounds. Turnovers were low for Purdue, ended up being 8. And sure enough, General Smitty ran the floor fluidly, and Coach Painter praised him as he had 8 assists and only 1 turnover. He added 6 rebounds. Yes, he only scored 2 points, but he only took 4 shots because he didn't need to. He was distributing the ball very well. Coach was excited by the defense and how they came out in the second half. I think we all were. Plus, not turning the ball over. All in all, a near flawless game for 30 minutes anyway, we'll call it that, after a crushing loss on Friday. Look for this team to continue to roll this season, but there are some very tough games next up as the Boilermakers travel to Toronto, Ziti's neck of the woods, where they will take on the currently 6-2 Alabama Crimson Tide. Looks like the game time's about 1:30 p.m. After a week off, then they will battle number 1 Arizona on the 16th at 4:30 in Indy, and the month ends with a game against the Jacksonville Dolphins on the 21st and Eastern Kentucky on the 29th. After that, January is into the depths of the Big Ten schedule with just about 2 games a week until the Big Ten tournament in the middle of March. There is a lot going on, and there's going to be a lot of video going on this year with some great highlights. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.